Hello, everybody. It's Monday morning. Okay, I am joined today by the amazing Marlin Williams. Marlin is currently at StockX. Is also like, I feel like so cool. Like I feel like yours like such good counsel, such good like all the things. So I'm like always like I was like, oh yay.
Thank you.
I've been looking forward to this conversation for weeks and weeks and weeks.
We are here. We are doing it.
Yes. Okay, a little background on you. Originally, you were a mortician, right?
I was an aspiring mortician. I worked at 2 funeral homes, taking my talents all over the city.
And why did you decide to go into that originally?
Both my parents, I grew up in church. Both my parents are Baptist ministers.
Okay.
And thus, you go to church a lot and you go to funerals as well. So I was really interested in just saying, why do people look like that? Like I understood the whole spiritual piece.
Yeah.
Like, no, but why do I want to touch them? And what is that all about? And,
that is the new creepiest description of something.
So I got to experience going to see a couple autopsies to see if it would freak me out. It did not. And I'm like, you know what? These were people. They're just like me. They aren't alive anymore. And how do we hear that? And there you go.
And then how did you, because I know you kind of had like a defining moment in life where you were like, got exposed to the tech community or like the tech world. Like how did that transition where you went from?
Did you see white paper? No, okay.
No.
I have white paper all over my house and I want to make sure I'm not sharing StockX secrets.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, no, I was working at the funeral home at the time, and I was also a substitute teacher at my old middle school, which was Ludington Middle School in Detroit. And a classmate from Cass Tech told me about a program at CompuWork Corporation where they could teach you how to become a programmer. We call it coder now, but 20 years ago it was a programmer, 25 years ago. And all you needed was a degree. Degree didn't have to be in any particular discipline. And I went to the interview and I got the job. And I had no idea what programming really even was. I didn't care. They were just paying, what is it, like back in the day, $24,000 and full of benefits. I'm like, I'm gonna be rich. I wasn't paying the funeral home, right? And so I just blindly stepped into this thing and learned 7 languages in 13 weeks. It was called Professional Development Program, and I emerged as a mainframe programmer. It literally changed my life.
I like how you always have like 10 jobs and like are like, oh yeah, just 7 languages, like what else? Yeah. Like, and then I just did that. It's like always like here's 100%, and you're like up here. I'm like, just come like at my level for a second. Can't be having 10 jobs and.
I think we overthink things. And back in the day, I just didn't. I'm like, what's the worst thing that can happen? I don't get the job or I don't make it through. Like, that's not the worst thing that can happen. So you just do it.
And then you had worked your way up and you were on the management team.
Yeah.
There.
I was. Yeah.
And then that's where
everything just kind of exploded.
Yeah. And that's so awesome. And so now you are at StockX, and you are the Global Diversity and Inclusion Officer at StockX.
I am Vice President of Global. So it's a whole lot of words. Vice President for Global Diversity and Inclusion at StockX. I've been there a little under 4 months.
So. Man, that's awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. I like the other day, actually, by the other day, I mean like 6 months ago. So time has no meaning anymore. Right. I saw the StockX like thing on my husband's phone, like the app, and I was just like, oh, my friend just like is like do that. And I love StockX. And then it was just funny that he's like, oh, I know it from the tech community world and like not actually as a consumer whatsoever. And so it's just funny to see something like, oh yeah, like it's right there on the phone. Crazy.
Yeah.
And I felt really cool. Like, I was like, I know people there. He was like, I don't care.
My nephew he loves me, but he loves me even more now.
Oh yeah, I bet. Like that
Yeah.
would be pretty sweet. Cool. So we're probably gonna end up jumping around all over the place, but the first question I had for you that I like always am kind of thinking about is moving as I move through like research pieces or do different programs, is just like who are like the really good players that in Detroit like sort of totally get it. Like they get the small business community, they get the startup community, but they're also like really helping provide resources and connections to like a more diverse audience and like really giving people that pathway.
Yeah. And so when I thought about this question, I'm like, in Detroit, um, I feel like there are some unsung heroes. And, especially just stepping out of that space and being chief program officer, it's just in the area of economic development.
Yeah.
I feel like now I can speak a little bit more freely. So here we go.
Yeah, I know. I do love that. That's like after I started entry point, I'm like, I'm gonna say all the things.
I'm saying all the things. But there are some players that get overlooked, and one that I'm going to just mention first and just talk a little bit more about, and others I'll list, is an organization called Access. And Access, I believe they're headquartered in Dearborn, but they do so much in the city of Detroit. But for me, when you talk about walking the talk about standing up diverse businesses, especially race and gender, if you're looking at different dimensions,
yeah.
Access gets it. I always say the diversity is a matter of the head and heart. It's the business piece, but it's also being empathetic. It's being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's being able to understand that sometimes it's hard to bring your whole self into any situation when things are going on in the world. Like, this organization gets it. And I don't know that they get the recognition that they deserve. There are many organizations that talk about it, but I don't know their impact. Access is one, and I just keep saying that name because I know that they can use some more funding. I know that there are people who don't know about the services they offer. And they just
because before you had mentioned them the other day to me, I had not heard of them, and then I was like looking them up online. And I was like, my God, they are doing so much stuff.
They have some amazing programs, and that's the thing. In our ecosystem, I would hope that we start raising up those players. Mm-hmm. There's enough for everyone. And how do we partner better? I always used to say that just because someone offers you money, and this is for our nonprofit, in the communities that are helping startups, how awesome would it be if you said, you know what, that's not really my bandwidth. This is not really what we do well. But hey, what about Access over here? Or how do we partner? How do we partner with these organizations so that we can ensure that everyone flourishes? Just wanted to drop that nugget out there. Sometimes it's okay. Oh, not my bandwidth. No, we don't really do that well. But here is someone else. So Access is definitely one of those. Osborne Neighborhood Alliance is another.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no.
They were like, I'll take notes. I'm like, oh, let me write that down really quick.
Yeah. And oh God, his name is escaping me right now. He was going to not be happy with me. Very charismatic gentleman, does a lot of work in that neighborhood, and he shows up with the passion. And what I love about it is that he has a seat at the table. And if he does not see diverse businesses getting their just due, he's going to talk about it. He's going to say it. I appreciate people who, I always say, if you have a seat at the table, then, and if you are too afraid to talk, it's okay, no judgment, but just get up from the table. You need someone who is willing to talk up. So Osborne Neighborhood Alliance is another. Dr. Nicole Farmer, she has Lifeline, and I think she changed the name of it, but if people were to look her up, Lifeline Business Consulting Services. And it's so funny because God, this had to be maybe 10 years ago, I don't know. But I was looking to start something and didn't know then, but I know her now, but I didn't know how powerful she was then. We got in a room and we started talking about what I wanted to do. And I will tell you, it was just like two sisters sitting in a room, and she's guided me through this process. She was so transparent about everything that had happened in her journey.
Yeah.
So those are some things. Some others are, bamboo. Amanda does a really good job with bringing diverse programming and making sure different voices are heard.
Yeah.
She does. She does, and she not only talks about it, but she walks the walk. I know her well enough to know that her heart is in the right place.
Yeah.
Once again, that's somebody with the heart and the head. Bill, April's just, she's doing some great things as well.
Yeah.
April is very vocal.
I know. I do love that. I'm always like we'll text and I'm like, ah! And then I was like, good. So I feel like she's like a good person to go to for me to like text about something and be like, isn't this some crap?
Yes. But she will actually say the words.
Yeah.
Say the words. So those are some. And I know I'm forgetting some others, but like I said, these are some that maybe don't get as much attention or we don't talk about.
Yeah, no, I think that's so great too. And I love your point about just working, like not every like economic development organization or large company needs to try to figure out how to do some things internally. Like they can go to these organizations, and like I think like that pathway to the neighborhoods or to like the actual community that you're trying to serve is like so much more valuable in increasing your network and like really like building an authentic community. That it's like I wish people would do that a little bit more of like using these more local groups.
Yeah, and I think too that this is where we pay attention. So there's two things there. I think this is where we pay attention to organizations who really care about this work. If they are taking all the work and they aren't the experts in all the things, then how does it land in the diverse communities? How are the people going to actually get the services they need? Because what you're taking the dollars and you're experimenting. You're doing an experiment to see what will work when there's an organization who has a pathway to success already.
Yeah.
It will work. So to me, it's like it's kind of like being disingenuous in that community. And then the second part as well, as we mentioned these organizations, some of the startups, and I always encourage this, and I will never stop encouraging, research these organizations. Just because someone refers you to them or they're have a certain stature, you want to research and really see what they're doing in the diverse community. Ask for an impact report. Seriously, ask for reports, ask for stats, talk to other people who have gone through the organization to see how they've been treated. I wish I could give I don't have all the numbers, but I can give you some just bare basic things to do to find out if they're really doing the work or not, and if they're going to be able to serve your needs.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's why I think like just from like a research standpoint, we're like always telling people like when you're creating programs, start from the research. When you're trying to figure out like what the actual impact of something, because I think a lot of people like in theory will think something is working a certain way, and then after you like pull the data, you're like it's not actually working the way that you think it is. Like you may have all the anecdotal stories in the world, but like if it's not actually having an impact, like you should just change things up.
That's why
you should know.
That's what I love what you do. The data doesn't lie. The data is not going to lie.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's like largely, a lot of the reports that we do, we have a like pretty clear focus on diversity and like on like measuring capital flow to minority-owned businesses or really any of that. And so it's like we regularly post things that are like, hey, by the way, the significant gap we noticed was in traditional bank financing to minority-owned businesses or something like that. And then people are like, just the other Tuesday, people were like, oh my God, did you know it happens? And I'm like, look at the research reports. It's like,
I know. Listen, because it's easy to get a photographer and take a whole bunch of glossy pictures, and it's the data. And so I will drive that point home. Make make us accountable, make organizations accountable, because they're getting dollars to help you.
Yeah, lots.
Yes. And so make them accountable, hold them accountable. So, yeah,
I agree.
I guess I'll drop the mic on that now.
I know. I was like, I'm like, okay. So next couple questions. So the 2020 Detroit Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Report that we did back in early April shows that the Black population makes up 79% of the total population in Detroit, as most people know, and women make up 50% of the population. But in Michigan, the startup and venture capital communities are comprised of approximately 70% white men. And so now that you're like at StockX, but you've been in the tech community for a really long time, so I don't want to necessarily put you just only as a StockX representative. Right. But like, what are some things that you and the leadership team at StockX are doing to sort of build a more inclusive and supportive community or diverse teams?
Yep. So the first thing the StockX did was to hire me.
The best. Start with the best.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding a little. It's not even me. I
feel like that's not a kid. I feel like that's true. That's so good.
Not me per se, but you think about StockX is a startup.
Yeah.
And it takes some companies a kabillion years to even think about diversity and inclusion. Yeah. So one of the things that attracted them to me, like while they're building the business, they had the foresight to know, like, hey, as we build this business, the culture is important, and we want to make sure that we are creating a diverse and inclusive environment. So it was one of the things top of mind for me. I'm like, okay, this leadership team gets it. And it didn't take a scandal. It didn't take something riveting. It just took, we know this is the right thing to do. So we started there. The second piece is building a strategic initiative that permeates throughout the organization. So what I like about what we're doing at StockX is that none of this is a one-off. Like, it's not like we're building a program and it's just this thing over there. Yeah. Or we're going to do this one thing. So, So when you think about what we're doing there that is really unique is that it is embedded in every piece of the organization. So when I say that, we're looking at recruiting. Like, how do we recruit? Where do we recruit? What does the data say about recruiting? From onboarding, how are people, that's where the inclusion really begins. How do people feel when they get to the organization? All the way from career development, individual development plans, succession planning, like who's ready now, who's not, how do we get people ready, all the way through retention. So
that's so right. Which I feel like it's like, seems like such a hard part, the retention part too. It's like, once you get people in the door, if they're like, oh, this is fake. Yeah, this is all not real. Yeah. And then it's like they'll just leave.
Yeah, but we can get ahead of it. Like, and that's why, even in Detroit, it's the same. In Detroit's startup ecosystem, even from corporations, it has to be intentional. And I think what happens is if it's not intentional, it just will go by the wayside. So you're right. You will have people who will come into the community and leave because it's like, oh my God, there's nothing here for me. Yeah. Or you have people who go into an organization and they can't even maneuver, or they aren't treated, they are running up against some unconscious bias. And so they leave an organization. So it just has to be an intentional thing. We can't just think that we want these things and it's magically going to happen. So it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot, like I said, it's head and hard work. It is definitely doable. It's just a lot of work, but I love it.
Yeah, I feel like your job would be so heavy, especially right now.
Yes. I mean, like, I have to take mental breaks because honestly, every day, even on the weekends, I'm talking about what's going on in the world. We have employees who want to talk about it, and we should be talking. We should provide a safe place for them to talk about it. And that's part of my job. And probably if it wasn't a part of my job, just because I get it, people will want to talk.
Yeah.
So my calendar is so full. I wouldn't have it any other way, because when people aren't talking, that's when we should be afraid.
Yeah.
And people are talking. And I think the world is changing, because it's easy to say that's happening out there, that's happening out in the world. But no, we want people to show up as their whole selves every day, and people can't right now. They can't.
Yeah.
They're worried. They're worried about loved ones. They're worried about friends. Sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I do not want to know what happened the night before. Like, I can't, because, I just got to keep going. So yeah. It's heavy right now, but I really believe there aren't any coincidences. And I believe that this line of work chose me all those years ago just for a moment like this. So
yeah, that's so great. Well, you're gonna make me tear. I'm like, keep the feelings inside. That turns into like the professional podcast where I actually just cry on or not podcast. I just cry on every live stream, and everyone's like, Jesus, what a mess.
I wanted to bring up another point, if you didn't mind. I wanted to circle back, because Oprah had an aha moment. I want to make sure, like we're talking about the employees showing up as their whole selves. I wanted to go back to our initial conversation about in the startup world, right? So what I would say, how do we foster a more, diversity in our startup ecosystem? It will be interesting to know and talk to some of these business owners who let's just the dimension of race. Let's just say racially diverse business owners in Detroit.
Yeah.
And it will be interesting to know how many of these organizations or people in organizations have reached out to them. And not just from the financial standpoint, but to say, hey, how are you today? How are you doing? There's a lot going on. Let me just touch bases with you. And that is the piece that is monumental. And that's how we build these communities. Once again, it's the heart piece. It's not, I have this fund and we're going to give you $100. No, I don't know if I can get up and make the donuts in the morning. I feel like I can't breathe. How many of these organizations have that type of empathy or just foresight to say, hey, I'm just checking in on you. How are you? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm like, I just wrote that down because I was like, maybe I'll start adding that to surveys and just be like, by the way, did
people remember how you treat them? People will remember how you treat them during this time of social unrest and this pandemic. People are going to remember.
Yeah. No, that is so true.
Yeah.
I feel like there's already so many situations where you're like, okay. People get your number real quick.
Oh yeah, for sure. People can see through. I think people are seeing more and more. And and honestly, one thing that I saw before I left in my previous line of work is that even our funders are requiring different things now. They want to know the impact. They are talking more it's not open season anymore. And I love it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been having a lot of conversations with different foundations that their endowments are tied to the stock market, and they've done a lot of public investing, and they might be actually looking to do more private investing to help solve some of these capital gaps that we're seeing with minority-owned businesses or women-owned businesses. And so not only are they kind of thinking about shifting their focus, but they're also really wanting to be careful with investing, what programs they're funding and different things like that. So it's I think you're seeing people will start to see a lot of clamp down on funding for different economic development programs or programs that don't necessarily have an impact on the community or aren't doing enough for the community.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that. I mean, it's where we need.
Yeah, because then I think we will see groups like Access and the others you mentioned, like the Osborne Neighborhood Alliance, and I'm now reading my list, and Dr. Nicole Farmer, get more of that funding because they're the ones that are having the larger impact, and so we will see.
Yeah, for sure.
I also like how I think I was listening to your podcast this morning, what is the name of your podcast again? Because I got it.
Our new podcast. It's called My Peace is Non-Negotiable. That's me. One of the funny things is I took that picture in Jamaica.
I know, I love it.
On my 50th birthday.
I was like, isn't this from when she went to Jamaica? I was like, I love this so much. Yeah. I also love like the music in the beginning. I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm getting ready to listen to this. But I feel like a lot of your most recent podcast that you put up on Saturday, I really felt like what resonated with me was like coming into things with a learning mindset, and kind of like whatever has happened in the past can be put in the past, and you can always learn new skills or new ways of doing things. And I think like now that just seems so relevant to a lot of people who've kind of like held on to these like different ideas about society and about the Black community, or about different groups that they've worked with in the past or haven't, and can kind of like learn a new way. And you can just say like, yeah, I effed up in the past, but like we're here now, and let's learn some things. And I think that's also so valuable to have, like, so like like you're on my board, and Monica Wheat's on my board, and also Trey Boynton. And I feel like just being able to have friends like you guys who are like, if I say something that's like, no, you're dumb, stop saying that. Like, I feel like you guys will call me on that. And that was like something else that was like you had mentioned in your podcast of just like you have people in your life that can call you on your BS. And I think like that's so, it just was like really like resonating with me this morning when I was listening to that. I was like, yeah, like I feel like just having a mindset and then surrounding yourself with people that can call you on your crap.
Yeah, and being strong enough to know it's not personal.
Yeah,
it's that person to say, just stop. You're going down the wrong road. We're not doing that today.
Yeah, yes, it's just quit it.
Yeah, stop. Pity party is over. I need you to stop it right now.
Yeah. I know you have like 3 more minutes deadline. Do you want to talk about your podcast a little bit?
Well, I mean, I want to talk about whatever you want to talk about. So
we can. No, I want to talk about what you want to talk about.
Well, matter of fact, podcast.
Well, everyone should check it out. Anyway, it's so good.
Now it's really me being very open and vulnerable, which I pretty much always have been. I tell all my business, but it's just telling stories about life and how when you get to a point when you're really, really, really tired, for real tired, you will do your work around your life and show up a different way. And that peace that you find is so blissful. And, you don't care about the people, the circumstances, the places. You will tell them to kick rocks because you are just so, like seriously, like, well, you are disturbing my peace. Like, what is that about? Just exploring that. So it's a lot of fun for me. It's fun. I didn't know how to do a podcast. I just bought a mic and figured it out.
Maybe that's all there is.
That is all there is.
Well, I think it's really, really interesting. Like, I really like it. And I was kind of like having my moment on the porch and like looking into the trees by my house and like listening to your podcast. And I'm like, man, this is like such a good, like, take a moment, think about some things in a different way. And so I really like it. So I'd highly recommend it to people.
I appreciate that.
Yay. Cool. Okay, I'll have to let you go now, even though I'm sure that, I know there's like 9,000 more things to talk about, but for another day.
Again, yeah, just have me on again.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining and sharing your thoughts. And I just, love your guidance in all things. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you for what you do as well.
Yay. Okay, I will talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.